There's a little trick to doing this. We actually want to get at the very bottom of the shutter, we have our pivot. It's like a peg. And this needs to fit right into our pivot bracket. And once we get this thing centered in our pivot bracket, then we can actually attach it through to the top. All right, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to kind of tilt this panel back towards the sliding glass door. And by doing so, it's going to allow us to slip right into our pivot bracket up on the top. And now we give it a little bit of a pull forward. All right, and now we can actually go ahead and take and lock our pivot bracket into place. Now that we've got our first panel up in the opening, it's probably a good idea to take the sticker off. So what we're actually looking at is panel number 4 in the opening. Everything goes from left to right. So we have 1, 2, 3, and panel number 4. So let's go ahead and take this sticker off. It's a lot easier to do it now than when the panels are all together. All right, and we're ready for our second panel, which would be panel number 3. So again, we're going to kind of rock this in from behind. I'm going to raise it up a little bit, get it right into our carrier, kind of lock that into position. So that's okay, our panel kind of free swings at the moment. We're going to bring it over here as close as we can. We get the panels perfectly wedged together right here, and that's when we take and we install our hinge pins. So now we go ahead and we'll put all of our hinge pins in place to get these panels permanently attached together. All right, there's usually going to be 4, maybe 5 hinge pins per panel. It might be necessary from time to time to take a little rubber mallet and actually tap the hinge pins completely firmly in place. Our third panel in the set's ready for installation now. So we're going to move this close to right adjacent to panel number 3. We'll drop panel number 2 right on top. And again, we're just going to drop our hinge pins in. Even if we don't get them all the way in to start with, that's okay. We just want to get them aligned nicely. Okay, looks like we're doing pretty good so far. So now we can actually pop these doors open, slide it over. I'll take a rubber mallet and we'll go ahead and pop this pin down a little bit, kind of tap it down into place. All right, we're ready for the installation of the very final panel. This one, again, we need to attach into the bottom track first. So it has a pivot on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and slide that right into the bottom track. So we'll move the carrier into a location, kind of pull up on the panel just a little bit, get our carrier locked in place. You hear that nice click? That means that we've got the carrier locked in correctly. We'll move our panel doors together so we have easy access to the hinges, and that's when we'll start dropping in our hinge pins again. So we've got all 4 of our panels in place now. Now it's time to kind of do our final adjustments. Remember earlier when we moved the snubber over to kind of make room for this installation hole that we needed to use for the track? Well, now we got to kind of unlock, we're going to unlock the snubber and kind of move it to the side. And remember too, all along, we've left this left side frame loose for a reason. And the reason is now we're going to move all of our shutter panels over to the left. All right, we've got them kind of in place here. So the reason we've left this side frame loose is to go ahead and marry it to the shutter panels when they're in a closed position. So I'm going to come here, I've got my number 1 Robertson, I'm going to use our installation screws, and I'm going to kind of align this here to make sure that I have a nice even gap from the top to the bottom. And if I open up the shutter door, I can kind of mount this one where I know it's going to go there. Okay, and then let's move this over again. Kind of take a peek. Looks like we need to kind of push on our frame this way a little bit to get it aligned. So I'm going to keep my hand right there and keep the frame from moving. We'll go ahead and kind of move this door out of the way, and then we'll get install screw number 2 going here. After every screw, I want to kind of move the doors over check my alignment once again. We're looking absolutely fantastic so far. We're gonna, again, repeat this process all the way down our side frame until we have all the installation screws installed. And last but not least, we'll do our bottom one. And then we'll be ready to make our absolute final adjustments. All right, perfect. So now we've got all of our side frames installed. We've got our top frame looking good. But there's a couple of adjustments that we need to make. One of the primary adjustments for these systems to operate properly is for them to have the proper amount of tension on the doors. This is kind of how we don't want ours to be. Notice when I push on the shutter doors, they kind of pop out on their own. We need to add more tension to this system. And tension is added to these systems really in one way. Remember the snubber that we have located up here in the top left-hand corner? This is adjustable. Right now we have the snubber moved all the way as far to the outside as it can possibly be. Watch what happens when I move the snubber in just a ½ an inch. Now that we've got our adjustment wrench, I'm going to kind of loosen this snubber up a little bit, move my panels out of the way, and I'm going to move the snubber, let's call it a ½ an inch or so. And then let's tighten this thing down. It's important you get the snubber pretty tight in here. It is a Phillips, so you could also use a Phillips on your drill. And as soon as we get our snubber adjusted correctly, now when we go to push on our panel doors to get them closed and flat, they don't spring back out into the room. They don't push too far back into the opening. When you've got that adjustment made, you're in perfect shape.